For most of the ancient world, China was this land of just pure mystery. It was a place of unbelievable wealth and immense power. And here's the crazy part. While other great civilizations, Rome, Greece, Egypt, all rose and had these spectacular collapses, China just kept going. For thousands and thousands of years, through one dynasty after another, it just endured. 5,000 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. We're not talking about a footnote in an old history book. We are talking about a single, continuous story that stretches all the way from the Bronze Age right into the Space Age. And that incredible longevity is what makes China the longest continuous civilization on the entire planet. Think about it. It survived the fall of empires, it weathered the Dark Ages, it saw the dawn of modernity, all while somehow holding on to its core cultural identity. So the big question is, how? How on earth did they do it? What is the secret sauce to this almost unbelievable level of resilience? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. Okay, so a huge part of the answer, maybe the most important part, lies in this one really elegant and powerful idea. It became the political and, you could say, spiritual DNA of China for millennia. It's called the Mandate of Heaven. Now, this wasn't just a simple divine right to rule like you see in Europe. It was more like a divine contract. The idea was that heaven would grant a good, just person the right to rule. But, and this is the absolute key, if that ruler became corrupt, cruel, or just plain incompetent, heaven would take that mandate away. I mean, look at the very first dynasty, the Xia. Its last ruler, a guy named Xia, was apparently a complete monster. His cruelty was seen as the ultimate sign that heaven had washed its hands of him, which totally justified him being overthrown so a new dynasty could rise. And this idea created the engine that drove Chinese history, the dynastic cycle. It goes like this. A new leader rises up, unites the country, brings peace, boom, he's clearly got the mandate of heaven. This leads to a golden age. Everyone's prospering, things are stable. But you know how it goes. Eventually, corruption starts to creep in. The dynasty gets lazy, decadent, and the government gets weaker. Then you start to see the signs: floods, famines, rebellions, all seen as clear signals that the mandate is lost. The dynasty collapses, and out of all that chaos, a new leader emerges to start the whole cycle all over again. It's this constant pattern of collapse and rebirth that allowed China to keep renewing itself. Now, this whole political cycle wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was propped up by this incredibly deep philosophical bedrock. During one of those periods of chaos, three major schools of thought really took hold. First, you have Confucianism, which was all about creating order through respect, family, and social harmony. Then you had Legalism, which took the total opposite view. It said people are basically selfish and you need super strict laws and harsh punishments to keep them in line. And then there was Taoism, which kind of offered a third way. It was all about balance and just living in harmony with the natural flow of the universe. These ideas, sometimes competing, sometimes working together, really became the glue that held Chinese society together. So what did it actually look like when this dynastic cycle was firing on all cylinders? Well, it looked like a golden age. And you can see this most clearly during the Tang and Song dynasties. These were periods of just unbelievable cultural and technological breakthroughs. Just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, during the Tang Dynasty, the capital city, Chang'an, had around 2 million people. That made it, by far, the largest, most cosmopolitan city on the entire planet. It was this vibrant hub of art, culture, and trade that pulled in people from all over Asia and even beyond. And it was during this golden era that China gave the world what we often call the four great inventions. We're talking paper, the printing press, the compass, and gunpowder. And let's be clear, these weren't just clever little gadgets. These were foundational technologies that would literally change the course of human history forever. And the story behind some of these is just amazing. Take gunpowder. Get this. It was discovered by accident by Taoist monks who were trying to create an elixir for immortality. So instead of finding the secret to eternal life, they created a substance that would become the ultimate tool of death and completely change warfare forever. Talk about ironic. But, of course, no system is perfect. The dynastic cycle wasn't invincible, and eventually it would face massive shocks coming from both the outside and from within that threatened to shatter the entire system. The first huge shock came roaring out of the north. It said that he was born grasping a blood clot, a sign he was destined to lead. This, of course, is the origin story of Genghis Khan. After he united the Mongol tribes, he and his descendants unleashed this unbelievable wave of conquest that eventually swallowed all of China, establishing the Yuan dynasty. This was a huge deal. It was the first time the entire empire was ruled by foreigners. But the threats from the outside were often matched by pure devastation from within. In the 1800s, the Taiping Rebellion exploded. This was a massive, bloody civil war that resulted in a death toll that is almost impossible to comprehend. Somewhere between 20 and 30 million people died. It was one of the deadliest conflicts in all of human history, and it brought the ruling Qing dynasty to the brink of collapse. And at the exact same time, a totally new kind of external power showed up: industrial Britain. Now, the Qing dynasty basically saw the British as just another group of barbarians they had to manage, so they restricted all trade to one single port. But Britain, which was powered by the Industrial Revolution and had this crazy demand for Chinese tea, wanted open markets. And when China said no, the British found a product they could smuggle in and sell in huge amounts: opium. This wasn't just a trade dispute, it was a fundamental collision of two completely different worlds. The result was an absolute catastrophe for China. It lost 2 Opium Wars, was forced to give up Hong Kong to the British, and had to sign a whole series of what they called unequal treaties, basically at gunpoint. This event marks the beginning of what's now known in China as the Century of Humiliation, a time when this ancient empire looked like it was about to be carved up and eaten alive by foreign powers. And yet, China didn't collapse. Despite the invasions, despite the rebellions, despite the humiliation, that fundamental pattern of resilience, that ancient cycle of crisis and renewal, somehow it held on. I mean, when you just pull back and look at the whole timeline, the pattern is so clear. From the legendary Xia Dynasty way back at the start, through the golden ages of the Tang and Song, all the way to the last imperial era of the Qing, dynasties rise, they flourish, and they fall. But the core civilization, that cultural DNA, it just remains. It absorbs the shock, it adapts, and it keeps on going. And really, that brings us right up to today. After 5,000 years of this cycle of collapse and rebirth, of invasions and golden ages, China has risen once again to become a major global power. The dynasties might be gone, but you can still feel the echo of that historical cycle. And so the ultimate question is still out there. After 5 millennia of resilience, what does the next chapter of this incredible, unbroken story even look like?